All right, greetings and welcome to the last bit of the implementation for the Eagle Dive VR. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the Steam audio stuff by looking at the reverb stuff. And then we'll go in from there and talk about the mixer and hook things up to the mixer and stuff like that, essentially. So we should be good to go overall. Um, and yeah, so let's take a look at what we're looking at. So in this particular case, we have a waterfall ambience that we had configured, and we, in this case, I'm putting a audio loop here. Let me just sort of maximize my view so you can see a little bit better. So I've got my waterfall close there, and basically the idea is that I can what'll happen will be that there is in fact a reverb that will be put here as a result of geometry. So taking a look at that is a good thing. So it's a little bit interesting, but the Steam Audio does not really have a dedicated reverb plugin. What it does is it uses geometrically based reverb. In other words, reverb that's based on actual geometric objects in the scene. Exactly. So the interesting thing here in this case is I had to create objects that were in the scene. And these are actually, well, they should be invisible objects. I turned them on briefly for some testing. So I'm going to turn them off on the mesh renderer. But the idea is that once we have this geometry here, then we can basically create a reverb. We can basically create reverb because we've created a big room with geometry in it. And Steam Audio looks at this geometry. Each one of these objects must have a Steam Audio geometry component added to it. And depending on whether you want to have more than one material or surface in the project, then you will want to have more than one of these Steam. You will also want to have a Steam Audio material. Let's see if I can go to material. Yeah, so a Steam Audio material. But the nice thing about Steam Audio in terms of situations in which you have essentially sort of one material, right? Let's just say that, is you can go to the window menu under Steam Audio, and there's a setting. There's a lot of good settings here, actually, to take a look at. But in this particular case, you can have a global material setting so that even if you don't have a material plugin, you can set this particular material and it will behave like this for all of those surfaces. And there's, a few different surfaces that you have: brick, concrete, ceramic, gravel, carpet, glass, plaster, wood, metal, rock, and custom, whatever, you can make your own basically. So the idea in this particular case is I've defaulted everything that doesn't have a material component to be a rock, a surface of rock, basically. Some other useful things to sort of talk about. This is kind of useful situation. Is you can actually have two different engines inside Unity that will automatically use Steam Audio, Unity and Fmod Studio. So you can determine, if you got Fmod Studio installed, you can actually use Fmod Studio for the audio engine instead of Unity. And Steam Audio is aware of the fact that you can do that, which is nice. SOFA files are specifically formatted files for HRTF stuff. It's a little too complex to go into, but you can look up SOFA files with Google and find out some stuff about that. It basically means it's a different HRTF file, and there are different places that give you HRTF data files, basically. And you can use different data files in order to get different results if you want to. Then, of course, these typical things: the pre-exporting scene, exporting dynamic objects, and export to OBJ. And for the simulation preset, I chose high. As long as the game doesn't perform too badly, it's not a bad thing to be fairly high quality on the simulation preset. So that's basically it overall. But what we're going to do in order to get this kind of behavior, we need to actually do one more thing in order to test this out correctly. and that is we need to go to the Steam Audio Manager settings. Actually, we need to go to the bottom here in the inspector and click Add Component. And from here, we want to type Custom, because we're looking for a Steam Audio Custom setting. So this is going to be Steam Audio Custom Settings. This is going to be really important because we will not be able to get our room reverb without this extra custom setting thing. The reason why is because this program, this game, whatever, uses multiple scenes. And when those scenes are added, you know, when they're treated additively, like this one is, basically, in other words, it loads up a scene on top of another scene, Steam Audio can't work with the reverb in that particular case. So we need to go to Steam Audio Custom Settings. For here, we need to change the ray tracer to Embry, okay? Change that to Embry. Very, very important. Without this, you will not get any sort of reflections inside the project at all in its current state, okay? So keep that in mind. So now that we have Embry configured and ready to go, it's a good idea to sort of test out to see if we've got a little bit of our room action, and we can test it with things like the reverbs and stuff, but it's going to be not the reverbs, but the ambiances. But as I mentioned, it's probably better to have some sort of, you know, one-shot sort of sound effect. And I actually realized that it might not be a bad idea to run this through the Eagle sound effect. So that's actually what I did. I ended up actually creating a Steam audio source here on the Eagle sound effects. So we have those Eagle cry sounds that I put in the last few videos we had. And I'm basically making these, again, direct binaural, bilinear. And very importantly, I want to turn on the reflections here, the real-time reflections, and make sure that my indirect mix level is pretty hot. We want to have it, coming in pretty loud, comparatively speaking, in comparison to the direct mix, because we really want to try and hear what we've got going on. It's a little subtle, but you can definitely hear what's going on. So I did test this out earlier, so I know how it's working. So anyway, we can go and check this out, and then once we do this, then I think we'll move on to the mixer, and I think it'll be, get into the final bits of this, essentially. Alrighty, so we do that, we save our scene, right? Get all the settings that we want, go back here to the main menu, start it up. Now, what I have done, by the way, is I've muted a few of the other tracks, so you're not going to hear them, some of the ambiances and things like that. Otherwise, you get a lot of things playing, and we're almost at the mixer, and the mixer makes a lot of this stuff much easier, but we're not yet quite there. We're just going to test to see if we get any kind of reflections and reverb from the Eagle sound, okay? Just as a little sort of unit test kind of like thing. So test it out, and we'll hear our click sound, and then we're going to go straight into the scene. And what you're hearing in the background is just a little bit of that 3D ambience. I've disabled the 2D ambience already, but you'll have the flapping sound, and you can hear the sounds of the Eagle a little bit, and they have slight bits of sort of slapback echo. Hear that, right? And it changes depending on where you're at, so you get different kinds of. It'll update basically. Right? You get different stuff. Okay. So you can hear that that's clearly working, so that's good. Now I do want to sort of talk a little bit about if we want to place things in a three-dimensional sort of world, right? It is helpful to know how the three-dimensional world relates to the game world. So, or rather the audio manager world, I should say. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the audio manager, but then we're going to actually take our O3 gameplay, and instead of double clicking on it, we're going to basically stick it like here. So what happens is, if we go to the scene view, we can now see if there's objects physically in the space, where they are physically located. For example, our main thing that we're kind of really interested in our audio manager is these the waterfall ambience. Okay, so if we want to find out where that is, we can just basically go through here, and you could reposition this as you need to. I should also mention this is where, when you configure the Steam Audio settings, that you'll get a little sort of helpful kind of scene gizmo that basically puts itself there when you have the 3D stuff there going on. And I guess we should probably add ourselves a Steam Audio component since we didn't do that. So I should do that. Steam Audio source. All right, so, and when we do that, it's just going to go on the 3D waterfall ambience object right here, right? And it should put something in there as soon as we, yep, there we go. It has to be a little bit more than 0. If you have 0 on both settings, you don't see anything. But if you do just the tiniest move on these dipole controls, now you can actually see the results of the, the directionality of the audio source, if you will, that's playing out, as well as the shape that's there, right? So you can see the differences in the shape and the, that kind of stuff. So if you need to do that. So in this particular case, so this will help when you want to place a sound in a three-dimensional space. You just layer those two scenes together right over each other, and nothing gets, it doesn't permanently add anything to the scene or anything like that. It's just while you're working on stuff, and you can totally, save both scenes or save either scene if you want to do that as much. Just remember that if you move any objects in the scene, it's a good idea to do that exporting thing again. But in general, it should still work as long as you're not doing much of that situation. And yeah, so that's basically that. I added the audio source to that, and we're going to talk about how to do the mixer situation next. And the mixer is already included in this particular game lesson. And in that particular case, you're going to go to the Audio Mixer tab. And what you want to do is you'll want to go to the Audio Manager scene and then just simply start associating various audio sources with channels on the mixer, okay? With what are called audio output groups on the mixer. You can make groups pretty easily if you click the plus sign, and it'll make a subgroup, if you will, or a child group when you hit the plus sign. But you can also right-click on any group, and you can make another group that's either a subgroup or similar at the same level, what's called a sibling group. So then you can basically do it that way. And the cool thing is that you can then add various effects. We're not really going to do too much of this, but you're going to be able to do really cool things like snapshots. So you'll be able to actually fade in and fade out various things based on snapshot configuration that you can have inside the game menu. And so basically you can do different kinds of things. I'm going to probably bring this one down for this particular one. And then what happens is that if we get to the other one, then we get other kinds of settings, and you can see how they change when I'm flipping back and forth to them, okay? So we're going to go reasonably fast because we do want to sort of kind of get this done, and these are all ready to go, and you can just plug them in essentially. So it's pretty easy to do. And again, the step-by-step actually tells you pretty well exactly which goes where essentially, but these are also named reasonably logically, so you can kind of figure things out even if you didn't necessarily know that. So what you're going to want to do though is you're going to want to check out on all these different sound effects. You'll see, don't worry about the audio clip. Sometimes the audio clip is there and sometimes it's not. Depends on whether we're doing that as loop as a background or not. But it's the output here that you're going to be interested in. And so if we go here to the inspector view, look that a little closer, we can go here, and now all of the channels of the mixer are available to us, and we can just sort of associate that. So that was UI sound effects to go to UI sounds. And then we're going to go from Eagle sound effects, and we'll go and click that dot. And you can only do it this way, by the way. You cannot drag and drop. You can't like take a mixer channel and drag it over that, or take a listing over here in the groups and drag it over that. It has to be done by means of that little dot on the right-hand side, and then you can select which one you want. So this is going to be Eagle rather than Eagle sound effects. So it's going to be just Eagle, the sort of parent one here. Eagle wing flap. We were just listening to that while we were playing our thing, and we're going to put that on wing flap. And water splash is again water splash. And then our 2D area ambience. We got to unmute it, of course, so that we can mix it all up and stuff like that. Here's our waterfall, and we're actually going to put this as, I think it's just ambience. Yeah, it's just ambience, so it'll just go here, essentially. Then that's the 2D area ambience. For the 3D waterfall ambience that we were just looking at and dealing with, we're going to go here. We're going to choose waterfall over here under spatial effects, okay? And then for our wind loop, we're going to go here to the wind loop and choose ambience wind, and so on and so forth. We're almost done here. Menu music loop is going to go to, I think it's just going to be music, really. Menu music, yep, there it is. And then game music loop will be game music, and stinger source to stinger source. I think, or maybe misc, actually. That's the only one that doesn't have a direct name match. So that's going to be miscellaneous will be our stinger source. So now that we have this, you'll see that we have a much better audio management situation going on. And more importantly, that you can now edit things in the mixer. Remember how I said that, if you lose your changes in a game situation, then you can only save one change at a time. In the case of the audio mixer is an asset. It doesn't actually exist in a scene. So what that means is that when you play back inside the project and you're using the mixer, you can save the results while you're working in the game automatically, and it will be saved automatically because it's an asset. It's not a scene, so therefore it doesn't get reset when you stop playing the scene, which is a very, very useful thing. So there we go. Now I'm going to switch back to my basic view, and we will hit the results in the main menu and hear how this is supposed to basically kind of be balanced out more or less. And there's still some tweaking to have to do. And we may have some other settings that I may have forgotten on some things in terms of the loops. So we'll double check all that sort of stuff. But we're very, very close to being done here. So click the main menu and double click and play. And I did mute my music. So hang on one second. I think I muted my music accidentally. So I don't want to do that. So I want to go back to my music. Menu music loop. Yep, I had muted it. And the game music loop is also muted. By the way, the mixer itself may also be muted. Always a good idea to check. I think it actually came by default muted, but you can unmute it very easily. Mutes are not hooked up to snapshots, so they're independent. They're mostly for, checking things out and stuff like that. But of course, if you mute the entire mixer on the master output, then you get no audio. So definitely want to do that. You definitely want audio, I mean. So let me just make sure. Okay, so we did the 2D area ambience. Okay, I got that. Oh, I muted the waterfall ambience. Don't want to do that. So, and the light wind also didn't want to do that. Yeah, so there's few extra little things. I don't think I muted every one of these. That's spatialized. That's spatialized. Okay, cool. All right. So I think we're good. Let's try that out and see what that's like inside the game. Okay, well, that's fun. So it's basically correct now, but we have one more thing to do. Okay, and that is that we need to actually go into our thing again, back to our audio manager, and we have to basically put the mixer snapshots in where we had them not before. And again, snapshots similar to the audio output situations have to be done through this sort of little dot on the right hand side. So again, inspector, we'll go here, we'll hit the thing. Yeah, so this is basically the deal. Let's see, here we go. Start menu music, right? There we go. Start menu music should be start menu. And then fade menu music should be fade out menu. Yeah. And then fade ambiences should be fade out game. I think it says, yeah, fade out game, fade in game ambience. That's the one, right? And then our last one, fade game music, will be fade out game music. And that's what happens when we have like a conclusion to the game, like you win or you lose or whatever like that. So now that we have everything hooked up to the mixer, we can kind of start mixing things essentially and getting the balance right effectively. We can use the mixer itself. You can also, if you want to adjust the audio sources, you can do that as well. I did that for the ambience background because I thought it would be a good thing. And so basically there's that. And, you know, you can, again, your assets will be different. So your type of mixing may result in different results and that kind of stuff. The audio mixer, you know, we can solo things and stuff like that. And we can just do that even from the get-go directly. So we can just simply just say, for example, take the ambience output and the waterfall output. And remember, the waterfall is actually a 3D sound effect. And that is going to be actually right here. If we have an audio manager, we actually have this being here. I set it to about 300, and I'm going to probably just stick one dot in there to give it a little bit of a slightly logarithmic kind of curve to it. And because I found it to be a little loud in the last playthrough that I just did. And we're going to listen to the results of the binaural kind of quality. And you may decide that actually it's not going to be the best result, actually. But we're going to play around with different results here inside the game and just sort of see what will sound better to us, essentially. Keep in mind that a waterfall is basically a wide bandwidth noise source. So every tiny little movement of your head, you know, turning your character or whatever relative to the waterfall is going to be really obvious into the system. And it might not deal with it very well, you know, in terms of performance. So we're going to try this out and see what happens here in the thing. And, you know, and we'll go to the audio mixer and set that ambience there. And so what's going to happen is we won't actually hear the music at this point in time. We're just trying to start the mixing process, essentially. So what we're going to do is click that. And we won't even hear our click because it's not an ambience. But now we should be hearing all of our ambiences. And in particular, we'll get closer to the, I do 3 of these, I go a little faster. And we don't have a lot of time to test because technically the enemy eagles are going to get to 10 and then they'll beat us. But you can hear the quality of what's going on, right? So I'm going to stop it briefly. Going to go into the audio manager object, and under my ambiences, my 3D waterfall ambience, I'm going to start messing around with some of these controls and seeing whether I like results. So already bilinear is a lot smoother than the nearest HRTF setting, right? And you can see what happens is it's nicely blended with the 2D ambience. So the further away I get from it, the more I'm just sort of getting into the general mountain stream sort of ambience that doesn't really have any direction or anything like that. So, you know, we can do that kind of stuff. And then once we get this kind of dialed in and balanced nicely, you know, now we can start adding the other things in, like the wing flaps and stuff like that. So turn on the eagle sounds. Whoop. Oh my God. Yep, I just died. Yeah, so, yep, so hang on. Gotta get back to that control here. Excuse me. There we go. It's a little tricky being managing the window and managing the eagle at the same time. There we go. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So, okay. So that's our wing flap. We get our water splash as well. That's pretty loud, actually, so we could probably bring that down. Yep. Let's go get our fish. What does our fish look like? What's that? Sorry. It's really hard. Yeah, it's a little hard to hit it. Definitely hitting water a lot. Okay. Try that again. But you get an idea basically of what we're trying to do, right? And you know, once we balance all these sort of sound effects together, then we can potentially move that in. Now, in terms of the flappy sound effect, I should mention a little bit of something about that. So let's go check that out quickly. So the flappy sound effect it just needs to be timed to this sound effect. So if you're going to edit this sound or make your own version of this particular sound, the reason why it was included with this is because it was kind of especially timed with the animation. So it's going to work best this way, basically. So, but in this case, if I say reveal this in Finder, and I'm going to edit this in another application, like say Twisted Wave, then. And it probably will only, oh, yeah, there it goes. So in this particular case, what you'd want to do is just make sure that whatever thing that you do matches the timing of this file, you know, at, what is it, 2.4 seconds or so is what it looks like to me, roughly. So if you play it, it's just going to go. So that's what you have to do, is just basically match it to that, and then the animation will basically go along with you on that particular front. And so that's pretty cool, just to keep that in mind, basically. And we'll go back to Unity. All right. So we're getting pretty close here. At this point in time, you know, now we have to sort of, you know, put in the music, and then sort of kind of balance the ambience with the music and all that other kind of stuff. And, you know, essentially this is going to be like your own experiment. You can do whatever you want with this and, you know, change things around. You can even make some of the 2D sounds, the 3D sounds if you feel like doing it, and just trying that out and seeing, you know, what you want to do. You want to make this more your own than mine. So it's going to be your own kind of proclivities and tastes and whatever like that are going to be involved in this. So I guess the next thing to sort of talk about is how to make a build. Once you've got this basically dealt with and it's played pretty well, you can make a build. Okay. Now, right now default build is a simulation build. Okay, so it doesn't require a VR device. So I'm going to show you the two different ways that you can make builds basically on this, and then we can kind of go from there effectively. And so the first way, obviously, to make a build is by just going to the File menu, choosing Build Settings. And in this particular case, it's going to have it in this order, and you need to have it in this order. It needs to be Main Menu first, then Gameplay, then Audio Manager the last. Okay, don't put it in order of like 0, you know. So it should be 0, 1, and then 3, and then 2. So 1, 3, and then 2. Now, you probably already see this here, and that's perfectly fine. If you're on a PC, you're going to be able to make a Windows 64 build or a Windows 32 build. You'll definitely want to make it a 64 build. Certain things will not be supported in 32-bit builds, in fact, like the multi-scene support, so you may not be able to get some of the reverbs in a 32-bit build. In Mac OS X, you have no choice. It's going to be a 64-bit build, and that is all you have. So we can do this and then click the Build button, and that is going to make ourselves. And now what it'll do is by default is it usually likes to put it inside the project itself. Not a great idea. Don't let it do that. Put it on the desktop. Call it Eagle Dive, and Scott. And so basically, Eagle. Gotta correct my spelling here. So Eagle Dive Scott. So basically, that's the idea here. Is you do this kind of stuff, and you're gonna basically click save, and then it will sort of grind its way through, which might take a little bit of time. This is a fairly involved game. So I'll see you when we get back from that. All right, so here we are, and we have our Eagle Dive application, and so of course we play that. And there's some tricky things if you want to try to play this on certain kinds of Macintoshes, because it won't play automatically. It might have security issues, but you want to try and see if you can solve that issue. And of course we've muted the mixer and everything, so it remembered all those settings. So if we go here to the fishing game, hit the P, and you'll hear the ambiances come in here. So obviously you'll have to remember that when you want to make a build and that sort of stuff, that you turn off all those extra channels in the mixer, you cancel all those mutes and solos or whatever like that you've been doing, and so that you can basically return back to normal. So anyway, there you go. That's basically how you can make a standalone build. Okay, so there's one other build that you can make. There's another standalone build, but this is a standalone VR build. Okay, so this is when you have yourself a quest, and you can use the link as well. I may do a short video that actually involves the real quest, so you can actually see that in action in a little bit. But for now, let me show you what you need to configure in order to make a build if you happen to have a VR headset like a Quest or a Quest 2 headset, essentially in link mode. Okay, this only works in link mode. It will not be an Android build. So we're not making a native build to Quest or Quest 2, but what we're able to do is use them inside this sort of, basic kind of standalone VR sort of setting. So in that particular case, what you want to do first is you want to go to your edit menu. You want to go to project settings. And from there, you want to go all the way to the bottom and click on XR Plugin Management. And from there, you'll want to basically click Oculus and Windows Mixed Reality. Okay, just those two. And then you'll want to close that. And you can save the project if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It should automatically save to the project, really. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to the O3 gameplay scene, because it's very specific, because it needs those controllers and stuff. And you'll want to go to the O3 gameplay scene, which is under Equilibrium VR, right? And then O3 gameplay, right? And then from there, you'll want to look for the Manager 1 object, Game Manager 1. And Game Manager 1 has a checkbox called Has VR Headset, and you'll want to turn that on. Okay, save the project, and then when you make your build, that build will be VR compatible basically. But otherwise, if you don't do that, then it won't be looking for a VR headset in any way. All right, so that is pretty much all about the implementation overall, and it's possible I may have missed a couple of things, but I think we've managed to cover it all pretty well. And obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I will try and see if I can set you straight on this sort of situation. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and look, I will have more videos for you guys soon.